Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're live. This is WeatherBrains episode number 716 for the 7th of October, 2019. The pre-show. This is a wonderful time. And you get three things here, and you know what those three things are. We share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and we say outrageous things. And this is where I press a whole bunch of buttons to get everything done that needs to be done before we start the show. The show starts here in about 8 minutes. So if you're tuning in for real content, then just move it 8 minutes in. But I've got to put the embed code on some pages here and also transfer some radio files so our good friends in the radio business can have their files on time. And then we'll get the guests on here, our regulars. So, yeah, let's see here. Everybody's griping. I haven't received my invite yet. Hang on, it's coming. For those weather brain regulars, y'all stand by. Got to slap an embed code down here. And I would do this before we go live, but I can't do it because I can't get the embed code until we go live. So there. All right, we have done that. So now let's invite everybody. We are going to invite by email. And here we go. I'm trying to think who's in and who's out. I believe Troy Kimmel is out tonight. We'll invite him anyway. Where's Nate Johnson been lately? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think that's everybody. All right. So let's invite them and they will just show up like magic here. All right. I think we're done. So, hopefully everything's going to work here. This is a big software update day in the Mac world. The new Mac OS version was released to the public today, and which I'm not running. I don't put that on this production machine until a while after we've determined it's stable. But all of the apps tend to update on the same day that the OS updates. So the little magical programs I use, such as Audio Hijack, there's a new version. And Loop Back, there is a new version. And hopefully this thing won't blow up. Bill?
Hello, Dr. Span.
What's on your mind?
Some young man today, I was teaching 6th grade, and some young man at Pizzitz Middle School said to tell you he forgives us for the snowpocalypse. So it was our fault.
Well, it's nice to be It's nice to be forgiven.
He came up to me after class and he said, "You tell James that I forgive him for the snowpocalypse."
Wow.
That's why that was a joy never.
my heart is warm.
All right, are my settings right, James? Am I coming out of the right?
Your audio sounds a little funky from time to time.
It's my wonderful fiber internet that doesn't seem to work. I'm gonna boot it.
Mine works good.
I know. You're the reason I got it.
It is just stable as a rock. I am very.
Did you invite our guest?
No, I haven't done anything here.
All right, let's see if I can copy.
I guess you can.
Yep, I can. I appear to be able to, at least.
I think there's an invite button down there at the bottom.
Yep. Does appear to be that. All right, let's see. Todd.
John, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, James. We're finally getting some rain.
Woo!
Man.
And a big Packers win, too.
I'm feeling awfully good right now.
In Dallas. That's a big win. It's a big-time win.
So I'm going to see Dr. John next week. I'm really excited.
Is it next week, Bill? Wow.
This is the Middle Atlantic Chaser Con thing.
No, just
No.
going up on business and happened to be in Lancaster.
Okay.
All right, let's see. X. Boom.
Why am I flashing here?
Show title.
Yeah.
That
That was quick.
Bill, you might unplug your audio interface or plug it back in or something. It's sounding kind of rough. Hey, Kim.
Hello.
How are you?
Oh, doing okay. Hanging in there. How about you guys?
Well, we don't want you to be just okay. We want you to be just excellent, joyous.
I'm joyous. I'm filled with joy. We survived our first day of we're doing an experiment in the test bed, but with the full integrated warning system. So we have broadcasters and emergency managers and forecasters, and the technology, just everything broke. Everything was broken. Even PowerPoint was broken for some of our people today. So I'm joyful. We made it, but it was one of those Mondays.
Yep, rainy days and Mondays always get you down.
All right, James, is that better?
Talk.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Seems
Testing,
to be clean
1 2
now.
3.
That seems good. I've heard no strange noises, which is good.
That's always good.
Yeah. So look at this. We're finally getting some of that good stuff coming from the eye.
Oh,
I've got a whopping
that's beautiful.
9/100ths of an inch. And you know what? That's glorious.
Yeah, I hear you. Boy, it's been a dull autumn. The leaves are just going brown and falling out of the trees.
West Virginia, I've seen some decent color around West Virginia. You know, I think West Virginia, it's just almost immune to any kind of weather, and those leaves still look spectacular no matter what. It's like they're the everlasting fall color, because I've still seen some great photos from the West Virginia Allegheny Mountains. So, I mean, it could be fire and brimstone or drought or deluge. I mean, and they still look amazing. I don't know what it is. They've got this magic in West Virginia that it always.
I wonder if it's elevation.
Maybe. Maybe
because
the trees are just hardy enough.
Did they have a quick cold snap a weekend or so ago?
We had a couple of cooler snaps. Oh, God, my mind is. I know before that heat kicked in, we did have a couple of cooler snaps in September.
That's probably what did it.
Yeah.
Those quick cold snaps.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what John Denver said, Aubrey?
He was talking about the Shenandoah River, which is in Virginia.
Yeah, but he said West Virginia was almost heaven.
I know, but he's actually talking about.
But it's not quite.
He's actually talking about Western.
Botch the geography.
So the Shenandoah River doesn't pass through any part of West Virginia?
I think it maybe goes through the Panhandle a little bit, but it's really in Virginia. I heard rumors that he thought he was in West Virginia, but he was actually in the Shenandoah Valley.
Song facts. Let's check it out, James.
And welcome to our television viewers that are watching. It's 30 minutes after the hour on Monday night, and you know what this is. We're about to start WeatherBrains, the weekly show all about weather. Radar is calmed down here after some soakers this morning. Bill, do I need to invite the guests? Or
I did, but we're sure not seeing him. So I will see what the problem is.
Let's see what we're doing here. Oh, my heart be still. 1/1800ths of an inch? Really?
Woo!
Woo-hoo.
You are living right, sir.
That's so nice.
We were just amazed as our heat wave broke Saturday, and Saturday night we got a nice deluge here, about 4,900, but areas north of Birmingham had 2 or 3 inches.
That is nice.
Some of our places are 4 and 5 inches below normal over the last 90 days.
Yeah, I noticed the drought monitor is showing some drought creeping into, well, where you are, Aubrey, and starting to work its way into Pennsylvania.
But you
16
could-
months after all of that rain.
I know.
to go
18 months of
from
above average rainfall.
the winter drought to a fall drought. It took us 16 months.
Well, you can use the drought monitor to absolutely find my house. So if you just go to the most severe drought in Alabama, zero in on it, and right in the middle, that's my house.
How about that temperature drop coming in Denver Thursday? They're going from 78 Wednesday. They'll be in the 20s Thursday afternoon and in the teens Friday morning.
Wow. I just saw your pick of the week on that, and I mean, part of me can't believe that that's record setting. I mean, I feel like that happens to those people. I'm impressed. It's a lot, though. That's a lot.
Yeah.
I like our 101 from 101 to 47 this Saturday morning. I'll take that.
Yeah, Bill, we had something similar. We went from 96, which is, ridiculous. I mean, that blew away the old record by about 5 or 8 degrees.
Wow.
Wow.
96, and we went down to 38.
Oh.
Yeah.
We were regularly obliterating records last week by 6, 7 degrees. James was like the record miser. He took our 103 away from us.
Yeah, and I noticed those guys use Jasper on a couple of those national deals. The Jasper
They did.
automated data has been horrible for years. It's always like 5 degrees too hot.
The Weather Prediction Center didn't use it, did they?
So one of them, yeah, they did on a tweet. Said
really?
the hot spot in the country was Jasper, Alabama at 104, and really it was about 98 or 99.
They don't realize what
we
a
have
hot
some
spot it really is.
real quality control issues in a lot of these sites.
Yeah, if you ever take a look at where the ASOS is at Harrisburg International Airport, it's between the Susquehanna River and the runway. And there's this little spit of land, and that's where the ASOS is. So every jet engine that goes by it,
Oh yeah.
it's going to spew some exhaust right at it.
Wow.
That's why I like the Dale Enterprise weather station that we have. It's the oldest co-op station in the country. Oh, no, oldest co-op station in Virginia, continuous records, and the third oldest in the country. And it's outside of downtown Harrisonburg, about 3.5 miles. And there's no, it's just on a piece of property. It has not been crazy developed. It's not in an urban area. And so it's kind of one of our, real true temperature stations that has never moved in 135 years.
Wow.
Hey, Bill, do you want me to invite him and see if it'll work if I do it?
Yeah, do you have the email address?
I pulled up the calendar here, and I think I've got his email.
I've done it twice, but it's not getting through. I was about to call it.
I'll try to remember to send an email, but I will not be here next week. I will be at the beach.
What beach are you going to?
Right.
I'm going to
disclose that.
I'm going to Hilton Head.
Oh.
That'll be nice.
It's a girls' trip.
When Hurricane Maria comes?
We shall see.
Anybody know the way to the beach? It's that away. Yeah.
I will be in front of the tube next Monday night.
Ooh.
Monday Night Football, Packers and the Lions.
All right, somebody has to be in charge of the guests next week then, since I'll be watching football too, but it won't be the NFL.
Next week when Kevin Closel's coming on the show.
Kevin?
No, he's the following week.
It's Jeff Halverson.
Yeah, Jeff Halverson's next week. Aubrey, you're in charge.
Oh man, what's he going to talk about?
You'll have to call him from the beach.
I may have to
Talk about all kinds of weather stories. He's written all those great weather stories in Weatherwise. So Dr. John, you're out. Aubrey's out. Kim, what you doing next Monday night?
I might not be home yet.
Washing your hair.
I'll be driving up from Houston.
We'll put it on Troy. See, Troy's not here, so we'll make
it's
him
about
do
time
it.
for Troy to do it. That's something.
Need to
That's a
railroad
good idea.
somebody in here who's not here tonight. So there
Wow. I'm glad I'm back.
you go. So we'll wait
when you
about
don't show
three.
up, bad things happen to you.
Yeah.
We'll wait about 3 more minutes, and if not, we'll just do a home show here because we are now 7 minutes. We've not been this late in a long time.
Wow. Yeah.
So we'll wait here a few more minutes, and if our guest doesn't make it, then we'll just talk among ourselves and get cranky. See, where's
Bill's
Kevin?
making a phone call.
So
Where is Kevin? Sorry, go ahead, John.
I was going to ask, this is around this date is the 40th anniversary of an historic weather event. Anybody know?
The
40th
1979 snowstorm. Wait, nope.
Well, actually, Veterans
Yeah.
Day of 79 was a big storm. You're right.
Yeah.
But I was thinking more of a tropical variety. It set the record. This storm set the all-time record, low pressure.
So
Chip?
Alan.
No,
Worldwide.
That
not
was-
the
that was
Olympic.
Had to be in the
Hurricane Tip or Typhoon? Is it Hurricane Tip or Typhoon
Super
Tip?
typhoon tip.
Super Typhoon Tip.
Can you
That's
imagine this?
cool.
870 millibars.
What?
wow.
No.
It's like you're living a 850
5,000
millibar chart at the surface almost.
Yeah.
What was Wilma?
190 miles per hour, I think.
Wilma was what, 882?
Yeah.
That sounds right. Yeah, our guest is going to join us in 10 minutes, James. He got stuck in traffic in LA. What a
Shocking
story.
news.
Oh,
Gosh.
all right. Let's roll
Likely
it here.
story.
Sure.
All right. So let's hope all this software works. All right. Here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is WeatherBrains, the weekly show that's all about weather. This is episode number 716 for the 7th of October, 2019. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We have some of our regulars on this evening, including a very happy man, Dr. John Scala, because the Pack came through with a big win yesterday.
There you go. We're 4-1.
Pack.
We're looking good. And beat
So
the
the Pack-
off. We won in Jerryland.
Yeah, you went into Dallas. You went
Yes.
into the Texas Stadium, whatever they call AT&T Stadium, and won the game by 10 points over Dallas. Wow.
Yeah, it got a little scary at the end. We were up 31-3 and gave back a few, but we hung in there.
Wow. Well, congratulations. And John, you're also celebrating the fact that it's raining in your
Yeah.
world.
We are in an antifrontal situation. So the front is actually through DC, it's through Annapolis. And it wasn't until it went through Lancaster that we finally got the rain. And now we're looking at probably several hours of rainfall. We have been bone dry here. We really need the rain.
Yeah,
We're
we've
going to have
had
to wash out your
cobwebs.
mouth there for a minute, Dr. John.
We've had cobwebs and the rain gauges down here as well. But we've had a pretty decent rain today with that front. And Aubrey, so where are you? I guess you've had some rain a little bit, maybe enough to measure.
We did. I'm so excited. We picked up 9/100ths of an inch. You didn't think people would be so excited to pick up less than 1/10 of an inch.
Oh, you should be around here. We get a trace and we're dancing in the streets.
But some of our West Virginia spots picked up more than 1/2 inch tonight because the heaviest was across the Alleghenies. So they've certainly seen some rain and very beneficial because we're in this drought. And we're looking forward to some kind of light to steady showers continuing through tomorrow as the shortwave kind of scoots through and turns into a little upper low.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's not going to be very nice weather on the coast this week. Did you see that?
Oh, a little howler coming up the coast, huh?
Yeah, and then it gets stuck beneath the ridge. So that usually means I'm just going to sit around for a while and spin.
Not going to be another
Ridge
perfect
over-
storm, is it?
No, it doesn't have the baroclitic instability to support that, but it's with the trough amplifying out west, and that means a ridge in the east. We're going to go back above average, Aubrey. It's a broken record out here.
At least we won't hit 90 again.
No, I would agree with you there.
94.
Fingers crossed.
We
Right.
shattered 2 records. 94 was our hottest, which tied for the hottest October temperature in my area, 94 degrees, which is also the hottest temperature that we've had all summer. We hit 94
yeah.
in July, and then we hit
Yeah.
it again in October.
I think we set a record warm low also with the 96 that we
Ooh,
observed.
I haven't
So
looked at the lows.
I think
96 for a low. That's pretty impressive.
Sure, Bill.
Hey, if
So
we move the
Doc-
show next week, James, to Tuesday night, Dr. John and I can do it in person together.
That'd be
Well,
fun.
maybe we can do that.
That would be interesting. Wow.
Great.
Let's just do it. I mean, let's take a walk on the wild side. I mean, in the words of Lou Reed, Dr. Kim Cloco McLean is she's had a long Monday, but thank you for taking the time to join us, Kim. Thank you. You're so sweet to be here.
Well, it's wonderful to join you guys. I enjoy our time together every week, and gosh, our fun weather fact here, we've gotten to enjoy watching our radars. Almost everyone in Oklahoma who has radar scope has been just attached to it, watching butterfly migration. We had a cold front pass through this week, and a lot of butterflies rode it. So if you were outside when the front passed, you could see just thousands of these things streaming overhead, and it was incredible. Even before the front passed, I took my kid for a walk around a pond, and there were just hundreds of them, little baby butterflies, and it's incredible when you can use our technologies to watch something like that. So we all knew we had a heads up. It just looked like this kind of smoky cloud back behind a very well-defined front, and there it was. Tons of butterflies.
So is the butterfly migration later than usual or earlier, or is this pretty much right on time?
You know, to my understanding, it's a little, like a smidge late to be seeing it here. We usually see, I think, the higher volume closer to the end of September. But I wouldn't be surprised if there were parts of the country that the butterflies hung out in longer, because it was simply so warm in the source regions that these butterflies typically come at us from.
Awesome. Well, look who's back. Bill Murray. Bill was last on the show about 3 years ago. Bill, welcome back.
Yeah, and I won't be back for another 2. So this tonight is just an off week.
No. We're going to be on next Tuesday with you and Dr. John.
Yeah. I didn't think you were serious, James. I'll start moving Mr. Halverson. I'm
being very serious. I think.
Well, maybe we can get him to drive up too, and we can pick one of your favorite places where you work on your hair there, Dr. John. What do you call those places? Brew pubs? That's the secret behind that gray hair, isn't it?
Oh, it is. No question.
I'm long gone. There's no brew pub can help.
Little brew right here works all the time.
So, but Bill, our guest will be on here shortly. You might explain to our listeners that a little traffic issues. So
yeah, he's picking up his son in Los Angeles or somewhere out there in California. So he was running a little bit late. So he's going to join us. He'll pop in about 10 minutes here, and we'll get closer to having a full Hollywood Squares sort of set up here before it's over with. But yeah, I'm excited about that. So let's talk amongst ourselves, James. Do whatever you want to do.
So we're about to say we're missing Troy. I think he's got some papers to grade. And where's Nate been? We need to go find Nate. He is
Mr. NBC. Mr. NBC all over the place.
See, they get these big titles, the Grand Poopah, the Tall Hog in the Trough, whatever, and it's like they quit showing up here. So, and Bill, I think that might be your mic going crazy again. Can y'all hear that noise?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I think it's on your channel, Bill. I'm seeing your little box pop up when that noise gets weird.
We're going to kick yours out of this, or whatever our internet is called.
No, I don't think it's this is not bandwidth. It sounds like an audio interface issue.
I'll tell you what,
is fine.
I'll reboot and come back. So y'all
okay, yeah,
and I'll be back.
Oh, that's usually my problem. Wow.
Time to play the song while I'm gone. I'll be back.
You have no idea.
We can certainly play that.
Turning it off and on again, off and on again, off and on again. If you're trying, turning it off and on again, that normally does the trick.
Okay, so who is going to AMS 100 in Boston? Anybody here?
Yeah, I plan to if I can get around to making a reservation one of these days.
I'm still thinking about it. It depends on the funds. So I'm still considering. I'd like to, but we'll have to look at the budget.
Yeah, this is in January.
I'll show you my funds, Aubrey.
So it's January in Boston.
In Boston,
which sounds amazing. It's so tempting.
You know they're going to be buried in something.
Oh yeah,
or something's going to be going on here.
Just take a look at January 3/5, 2018 for a little heads up.
Yeah. So will the snow happen before the meetings screwing up everybody's travel during the meeting, locking everybody in place, or after the meeting or at the end of it, making everyone scramble to get home? Which one do you guys think is going to happen? Or possibly all of them?
I'm thinking during.
During? Okay.
Since the airport's going to shut down, I think Kim should drive from Oklahoma and then just pick us all up on the way. She could drive through Alabama,
That's right.
Virginia, Pennsylvania, and then we'll just be all
There you go.
together. And
It's
so
not
we could
far.
drive back since the airport's going to be shut down. But
Guys, a road trip with all of us would be a real hit. That would be incredible.
it would.
HR
That would be
nightmare.
like beyond.
We'll need our own Discovery Channel show for that one.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
call Reed's old producers.
And we have a lot of people that listen to the show that are not professionals, and they're not even hardcore weather weenies. They just like weather. And I thought we might kind of explain the difference between the National Weather Association and the American Meteorological Society, the NWA and the AMS. The NWA meeting is where we're live every year in August or September. We were in Huntsville, Alabama this year, last year, St. Louis, Missouri. But the AMS, their annual meeting is in January, and they've got the broadcasters meeting. So, Dr. John, just kind of explain the difference, between those two organizations for those that are not familiar with them.
Sure. Well, the AMS is celebrating their 100th anniversary coming up. They've been around, since 1919. The NWA is actually probably, I guess you could consider it an offshoot of the AMS, which began in the mid-'70s. And the idea behind the NWA was a target organization focused on operational meteorology. It was a very small group when they started. And at one point it looked like they may fold, but they hung in there, and the organization is prospering now with 2,300, 2,400 members,
Wow.
something like that, I believe. So it's a targeted audience.
And again, the NWA, it is mainly for operational meteorologists, practitioners, those that do what I do. And again, for that, it is maybe a little smaller event every year, but to me, it's like a little family reunion of several hundred people, maybe 500-600 people every year. And I just love that. The AMS, on the other hand, you've got those in academia, you've got those in research. It is just a bigger meeting. What's the average annual attendance at the AMS meeting in January? Anybody know? It's got to be over 1,000.
Oh,
Oh,
easy. Easy.
Several, yeah.
Yeah, several
It
thousand.
varies some. It's 4,000 to 5,000 or so, and some years can be. I think there was one year that was over 6.
Wow.
Gosh, which one was it that was the most popular spot? I can't believe I'm blanking
Phoenix,
on it.
maybe?
Phoenix is popular. New Orleans was a well attended spot. Seattle was, always a good location too. They've gotten a cycle of doing the same places every couple of years.
Right.
We're about to start a whole new circuit, so this will be new territory. We're going to do rotate between Denver, Houston.
Uh-oh.
Bill.
Bill.
Turning it
Oh,
off
boy.
did not solve the
Made it
problem.
worse.
All right. Y'all are on your own.
Can you go to your headset mic, your as opposed to the audio interface thing? It just sounds like you.
Now it's going to be the external mic. Let's try that.
Sounds
Hello?
better.
That's better.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Well, there you go.
Roll with
I guess
that.
my microphone in a coffee cup is going to probably be thrown away.
Oh, this sounds 10 times better than that other one. So no, you're good.
Coffee cup it
Wow.
up.
Good.
So anyway, back to the AMS NWA thing. It's just different, and I will say the AMS can be overwhelming when you are attempting to find talks that you want to hear and papers being presented in poster sessions. It takes planning, and you just can't show up and do it on the fly. At least I'm not that good. It takes me, several weeks before the thing. I'll get in there and try and come up with a plan. And they have a good app, and but it's just bigger, but it's intense. But you'll meet people that you don't get to see at NWA. So, but I think I have to go to this 100 thing. It's been 100 years.
That's
I'm a
what I
Boston guy. I want to see Fenway in the snow. So
think.
Well, in the
Uh,
NWA newsletter that came out, what was it, not too long, last week or so, they said we had 685
Yes.
attendees
Right.
at NWA, which is a record high, beating the
Wow.
previous record of 674 in Oklahoma City in 2015. So 685 attendees in Huntsville this year. That's pretty awesome.
That's about 25% of the membership. That's fantastic.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That's really good. Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm
So,
about to start show. I just want to say that over the weekend, I was flipping through channels. I don't typically watch. Okay, I never watch the Weather Channel, but there was nothing on. I was being lazy yesterday. I was flipping. I was on my phone and not even paying attention to the program. And all of a sudden, I hear teenage weatherman saved hundreds. And I knew it was
Johnny Parker.
Johnny Parker. And so I kind of rewound it and watched the story and caught the end of it and saw little Bill in there taking some photos at the end.
Yeah,
So saw you at the end and was able to watch his story and had the pleasure of meeting Johnny's mother this past March at the Severe Storm Symposium. She came up to me and I had the pleasure of meeting her. So that was really nice to actually visualize his story as opposed to reading it in the book.
And Aubrey, Johnny's been writing some posts for us. So we've had
nice.
10 posts over the last month or so. So we'll increasingly use some of his, but he does a fantastic job.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Him and I, we'll chat on Twitter occasionally, and it was really cool to see that. So, really nice.
And Johnny
Good
was
story.
on WeatherBrains, Bill, for an episode, and I can't remember which one, but he drove over from Smithville, Mississippi to Birmingham, and we did it here in the studio. I came out of my closet and went in the studio. And, I want to say that was in what, 2012 or 13, something
Probably
like that. Bill?
12 or 13. Yeah. I went back and watched watched it the other night because I wanted my kids to see Johnny because they had never met him or, knew about it, his story, because it truly is an amazing story.
Look, we're seeing on the screen now. I'm seeing a really impressive looking man here.
On the Weather Channel.
It's a different John. I didn't realize the little.
Speaking of story,
There you go.
Wow.
It's amazing what you can find, isn't it?
Well, think about it. Your whole life is on YouTube. I've learned that.
Oh,
I
I
mean,
know.
if you've been doing this weather stuff for a while, somehow you'll find your stuff over on YouTube. But anyway, the AMS Monday is the 13th of January. So if we get enough of us up there, we might do the show live from Boston on the 13th of January, which I think would be a lot of fun. Where are they going to have it? I don't even know where they're going to have it. I guess I need to go ahead and register soon if we're going to do it.
Yeah, it's at the convention center.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is just a stone's throw from Logan Airport.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I in fact, a year ago, I was up there for the World Series and did a totally illegal live report on our 6 o'clock news on Skype with a phone, which is totally illegal. You're not supposed to do that, but it was that was just tremendous. We had a great time. So I see that our guest Bill is joining us on the line here. Let's see here. And Bill, you are muted.
Yes, Bill, you are muted.
I muted myself so I could talk to Todd because he was calling me on the phone.
Oh.
But then he appeared and I didn't unmute myself. So Todd, I guess you can hear us.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
fantastic. There we go. Yeah, you sound great. All right. So the gang's all here, James.
All right. Awesome. Let's bring in our guest. Bill, the floor belongs to you.
Oh, Lord. All right. Well, our guest tonight is a suggestion
Bill is
of our...
Can you tell Bill's struggling tonight? He's just struggling.
I want to know
weeks
whether
we
I
struggle.
can go to AMS. James, there's an important event going on that Monday night.
Look, you can miss a 50-cent beer night at Hooters. It's okay. There's always
There's
another opportunity.
important event besides that one. So it generally falls during that week. So we'll have to see. But no, tonight's guest WeatherBrain is a suggestion of our super listener, Steve Holmes. He's the Director of Emergency Management for Titan HST and the host of the leading emergency management show, EM Weekly. Todd DeVoe, welcome to WeatherBrains.
Oh, hey, thank you for having me. This is it's great. Sorry about it. I was in traffic, had to go pick up my son from school, and I did not expect it to take as long as it did because I live in California, and I forget we have to now add 45 minutes to everywhere we go.
That sounds like Atlanta.
And, you know, well, Atlanta's that way, but you're driving at 80 miles an hour on the Beltway. You know,
That
while
is
you're-
true, Bill. Everybody drives the route number, 85.
Yeah, yeah, 485 sometimes. Well, Todd, it's great to have you on the show tonight. Thank you for joining us and being here. We really have been looking forward to talking to you. Talk to us a minute about all the things that you do.
Whew. Yeah. Sometimes I wonder if I just have I can't figure out what I want to be when I grow up. So yeah. So I my big passion obviously is teaching, and I teach at Cal State Fullerton, at UCI, and also at Coastline Community College. And a friend of mine said that that makes us intellectual migrant workers, and instead of being an adjunct professor. So either way, that's what we do, and it's great. And I love teaching emergency management to the next generation of emergency managers coming up. And then of course I have the EM Weekly, which is really an extension of my classroom. That's the way I look at it. And I bring guests onto the show to talk about what's going on in the world of emergency management, trends, you know, why we do what we do, and how can we improve what we do as response and recovery, you know, all phases, but specifically those two are the big ones for emergency management for emergency management across the country. So that's kind of what I do. I'm a dad. I like football.
So who's your team, Todd?
The Buffalo Bills.
Oh, there we
Oh,
go.
and you're in California. Whoa.
Well, I'm from New York. So
Okay.
I was born in Buffalo. Got out to California via the United States Navy, and I stayed.
Well, you got to be happy this year.
Yeah.
Ecstatic.
Yeah. Wow.
So how's the Monday night game going tonight? I haven't paid
I
any
have
attention to it.
not checked.
I was 14-3 last time I checked 49ers.
So it's amazing to me that Freddie Kitchens is the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. James, would you have ever expected that to happen?
No, but yeah, I think he's going to have a pretty good year. I think Cleveland might surprise a few people this
They
year.
got a
They
good
are.
team. I was looking
Yeah.
at the lineup tonight in the pregame, and that's a pretty good team.
Yeah, you know, I think the concern, they were a little too hyped up before the season started. You know, I think Freddie would like for them to be just, you know, nobody expects anything out of Cleveland. They're the Browns, and they come in and surprise people. But I wouldn't be shocked if they had a winning record this year. But we'll see.
Yeah, so
We got
that's a.
quarterback.
Hoping.
So I was really surprised with the wide receiver core that they had to go along with Baker Mayfield. That and plus the running back out of Georgia, right? He's the starting running back, Nick Chubb.
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's pretty cool. So, but the
Thanks for
49ers
listening to Thanks for listening to
Exactly.
Football Brains. Yeah.
With the 49ers undefeated, that may be a tall order to beat them tonight, but we'll see what happens. So talk about how you got started in emergency management. How you
Sure. So my first taste in natural disasters happened when I was in Okinawa, Japan, and the Kobe earthquake occurred. And we supported the Kobe earthquake. I say we, the United States Navy and the Marine Corps team, we supported the Kobe earthquake by sending some supplies over there and sending things like that, and really kind of do like the logistical part of it, not so much hands-on stuff because of the SOFA agreements and whatnot. And I thought this was kind of an interesting job, you know, and I was a corpsman, and so medical stuff is kind of what I was really interested in. And when I got out of the Navy, I stayed in California and I worked as a paramedic. And I went on a few large fires, and I was like, oh, this is neat, and you can make a living, you know, kind of just managing it from, you know, and looking at that decision-making process, not necessarily banging it out. And so I kind of fell into that. I went to school, used my GI Bill, got educated, and started doing emergency management. Got my first full-time EM gig in 2005 for the city of Dana Point, working with a nuclear power plant down there, the Center for Nuclear Generation Station. And so that was really my first really big EM job, doing that stuff, and just have been doing it since then.
So you mentioned something there that I don't think I've ever heard of. You called them SOFA agreements. Explain what that is?
Yeah, it's the Armed Forces Agreement.
And so that limited your ability to what you could actually do
Yeah.
as the military.
So there's things that we can't do to the civilian population, specifically, whatever the agreement is, with whatever nation we're in. So we can't, like, medically speaking, we can't treat the civilians, so we can only assist them. Depends on where you're at. The changes depend. It's not the same everywhere you go. That just happened to be the agreement that we had with Japan.
And the Kobe earthquake was a terrible, terrible disaster. Talk about it for a minute. Did you actually go into the affected region, or were you working sort of remotely?
Of it, so just short of that area. Yeah. So oddly enough, we were doing training, and we had these videotapes called Pulse. I don't know if you guys remember those or not. And they were just basically for continuing education units. You put these videos in, you take a little test, and you get like CEs for paramedic. And they were talking about the Northridge earthquake. And so we're watching this thing on the Northridge earthquake, and I paused we were taking a break, and I paused the video machine. It was a VHS. For those of you that don't know what VHS is, it's a tape about that big, and you put it inside a machine and you push play. And,
some of us remember those.
and then sometimes it's rewind it and stuff. So yeah, so I turned off the VHS player, and there was still earthquake footage, right? And I'm like, damn, pause, right? Pause. And I'm like, oh, smoke, that's the real thing. And just as we looked at this, our phone, we had like an actual ring down phone, called in our office area, and they were saying, hey guys, just be prepared to get going. So we had to go and get all of our things. We basically activated on the medical side. So I was with the 3rd Medical Battalion, Charlie Company, over in Camp Schwab. And that was kind of how we got involved with that.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy right there. So you talked about your experience with fires. I guess, you get a whole different set of hazards there than we get here in the Southeast. All this is interesting. You got a tsunami sign. You talked about fires and earthquakes. So talk about your experience with fires for a second.
Sure. So one of the first large fires I went on, the one I don't remember the name of it, but it was up in the National Forest here in Orange County. And basically, we go up there for medical support. And every fire you go on, somebody's getting hurt a little bit. Sprained ankles, things like this. Not major injuries. And so that was sort of my first fire I went to. And then the first large fire I went to that I can remember was the old fire in San Bernardino. And we're doing evacuations. We had to evacuate convalescent home over there. And we were working so hard that we were doing first 911 calls into areas that we weren't familiar with. So we had to we call them bird dogs. We had to have a person kind of show us the way using our maps and whatnot to get around because everybody else was out on the fire. So we were actually augmenting them on that. And then I was doing medical logistics on the fire, which is a whole nother world. It's kind of cool though. But this is what I really love about it, is that we collaborate really well together. And I've never called somebody up and said, hey, I need this. I never had them say no. I've had them say we don't have it, but we think we have another source for it, but I've never had them turn me down. And I think that was the kind of part that I loved about it, the fact that you pick up the phone and say, hey Zoll, which is our provider, we need another 100 AED or defibrillator batteries. Okay, they'll be right there, right? And we either went down and got them, or they would bring them over. Hey, we need this, we need it. And everybody, it was just such a cool feeling to go, wow, people actually do like each other, because I worked in some really bad areas of Los Angeles County where you weren't even sure if humans even got along anymore. So that's what I liked about emergency management. So that was one of the large fires. And then I was on in Orange County in 2007 was my first large Orange County fire that I was working in the EOC. And this is another great story. Talk about humanity. So it was the 18th fire in California that was going off. And we actually sent a lot of people up north to a Northern California fire and supplies and whatnot. And so the fire started around 5 o'clock in the afternoon or so. Really super windy day. So it was cooking the fire, making it go fast. And so we get up to the I get up to the Emergency Operations Center. I'm the planning section chief, hanging out there. Just we're trying to figure out how to get our arms around this this fire. And we have this program that we created in Orange County with the volunteers called the CERT volunteers, the Community Emergency Response Team, and we call it CMAP. It's the CERT Mutual Aid Program, and we had it on paper. It was more so to like move grant supplies around, right? You had to be a member so you can get like more stuff for your teams grant wise, and it just made sense for the Citizen Corps grants to be funded this way. And but we had an activation plan. We never drilled it. We never tried it. It was just on paper. And so the battalion chief that was up in the EOC looked over to Donna Boston, who is the emergency manager for the county. And he goes, hey, can we activate those green vest people? And she goes, you mean CERT? He's like, yeah, those are the CERT people. So Donna's like, I don't know. So she looks at me. She goes, hey, Todd. And I was the chair of CMAP at the time. She goes, can you activate the CMAP group? I'm like, I don't know. Let's give it a shot. So I pick up my phone, right? These great devices. And I just call Brenda Emmerich, who is down at Costa Mesa Fire Department. And this is at 2:00 in the morning, by the way, just to kind of let you know. So I call her home phone. This is the relationship that we have. That's what I'm talking about, like here in Orange County. That's the great collaboration. She answers the phone, and she's like, what? It's 2 a.m. I go, I know, Brenda. I said, we're activating CERT. And she's like, shut up. I'm like, no, really, we're doing this. And she goes, this better be real because I'm calling my chief right now to get this thing rolling. I'm like, it is. I said, I need your help. I need you to call the other coordinators. Let's get this happening. By 5:00 in the morning, I had 36 volunteers standing with me, ready to do work. I don't know if you ever worked with volunteers before. Working with the professional guys, you go, all right, guys, we're here. We have a job to do. Stand in the corner, drink coffee. And they're going to say, aye. I'm standing by to stand by. Drink coffee, tell stories, whatever it is. You deal with a volunteer, certain volunteers specifically, and it's a good thing. You go, hey, stand over there in the corner for a minute. We're going to figure out what to do with you. And they're almost like my 5-year-old. They come over, hey, pull my pants. Hey, when are we going to go to work? I'm like, we're going to go to work. I promise. Just got to stand there for a minute till we figure out what kind of work we want you to do. But then it was amazing. And by the end of that fire, we ended up having 265 CERT volunteers go through that whole week and a half. I think it was almost 2 weeks that we had them. And so they started doing donation management, traffic management, a couple other things. They had actually figured out a way to increase the speed of the demobilization of the fire trucks by having the guys start the paperwork down at the end of the road. So by the time they got up to be checked out, it was faster. So we actually increased or decreased, I should say, the wait time by 25%. It was a CERT volunteer that figured that out. And then with the donations management stuff, so Target and Walmart came and dropped off like t-shirts, underwear, socks, blankets, things for the firefighters and sundries and stuff. And so they created what they call it CERT Mart. And they had like so if the firefighters came over, they had like this whole assembly line of you get your bag, get your stuff, boom, boom, boom. So through CERT Mart. And then we had coffee, of course, on the other side. And of course, the coffee people couldn't be outdone by the CERT Mart people, so they created CERT Bucks. And so they had, one of the guys went over and figured, I don't know where they got it from, but they were actually like doing like whipped stuff, like like a frappe or whatever you want to call those things, and it was amazing. And it was all CERT volunteers that did this, and it was amazing. And they did it with a smile on their face. None of them complained about it, and that was like my first time actually really using volunteers in a large scale disaster. And we did it again. We did it again in 2008 with the freeway complex fire. So that's a great success with our CERT program. So much so that myself and Matt Brisboy from Newport Beach Fire Department went back to DC, and we talked to a bunch of congressmen about funding Citizen Corps still, and they accepted, and we were able to keep the Citizen Corps funding going. I don't want to say it's based upon those guys, but I think it's based upon those guys.
Well, I had a similar story with the CERT folks in Huntsville. James, you remember how crazy it was for the Weather Ready Fest on that Saturday morning. I mean, we've got 80 volunteers, and they're all going 10 million different directions, and the CERT people show up for their, for their table. And it was like, hold just a minute, I'll get you set up, and I get distracted 5 or 6 ways. And, I forget about them, and I look up, 10 minutes later, and I go find the CERT folks, to see if they were okay. They had gone by themselves, found the table, mobilized it, set it up, found the power, determined that, they needed this, that, and the other thing, from internet to whatever. They never asked another question. They were just set up within 15 minutes.
Right.
And I was like, I am so sorry. I was going to get all that stuff for you. And they're like, oh, we took care of it. So what's the secret sauce here, and how do we bottle it? This is pretty amazing.
You know what it is and it goes back to humanity. And I think in general, I think people want to help, and you see it all the time, right? After disasters come, you have all these organizations that come out. You got the Cajun Navy and, Texas Navy, and you got those guys, kind of spontaneous volunteers. They have organizations like Team Rubicon, which is a veteran organization. It's a great organization. I'm part of that. And to work with those folks from Team Rubicon, that they've learned skills in the military, and they come out and they're able to use those skills again in disaster response. And they're right now down in the Bahamas, and they got a boat ride somehow. I don't know how they arranged that. And they brought over their heavy equipment and their trucks, and they have everything over there. And so they have teams of people in the Bahamas already working. So, they're quick, they're nimble. That's a great group. And it goes back to the Red Cross, right? I mean, you can't forget them. They're the stalwart of emergency, volunteers, and the people of the Red Cross, all the ham operators and the shelter operators and those people that go out there and feed people. You can't do a disaster without those people. And there's no way, I don't care how big of an agency that you are, that you're going to be able to respond to everything that you can respond to without a good, solid volunteer corps.
So you mentioned Walmart dropping off underwear and socks, and I really appreciated that when I went to assist a hotel during Hurricane Harvey a couple of years ago, because I dropped into town in a suit with a bag, with a hanging bag full of suits, and I'm supposed to be helping with the hurricane. So my first stop was at Walmart, and I'll tell you what, a $6 pack of Walmart socks are probably the best socks I've ever had in my life. I have them on tonight, because they are the best socks I've ever purchased. And I think they were 6 for $6 or something like that. Because I go in, I spend like $100 and get like 3 khakis, 3 t-shirts, and a bag of 6 socks, and new underwear. And I'm off and running for $100. So I was like, yeah, I get this. So, but you mentioned the private disaster response organizations, Todd. They're increasingly important in our world today that's full of disasters. Talk about their roles for a minute.
Sure. So, and this is my opinion, and I've done some research on it, and there's nothing, I can't quantify it right now. So, but what it is right now is I'm seeing this trend right now, specifically with emergency management organizations from across the country, across the world for that matter, that it's expensive to maintain, and I think that we're going to start seeing more people contracting out the use of even like EOC staff and things, and it makes sense to kind of have it going this way, because think about this: if we're in California here, this is where I live, and we get that 7.8 earthquake that Lucy Jones keeps telling us is going to occur, we're going to be devastated. We're not going to be able to respond. And so we're talking about we saw this play out, specifically New Orleans. We saw it play out in Houston. We saw it play out at the Northridge earthquake, a couple other disasters as well. So you're talking about a 40% response rate, right? So that means you have the rest of everybody else who wants to come might not be able to show up, right? So you're losing a pretty significant number of your responders, and they eventually come, right? In the case of the Northridge earthquake, it was about 24 hours after the earthquake came that you started getting full services again, full staffing. Sometimes you can't make it there, right? Roadways are closed or blocked or flooded out or whatever the situation is. So you're looking at a reduction of staff. And then if your home is impacted, right, your responder's home, or the EOC staff or the city council staff or or the mayor, or not the mayor, but the city manager, right? If all of our homes are impacted, how well can they do their job? You can probably get 24 hours out of them, but after that, they're going to have to start thinking about their family, their things. So I think the idea, and I think it's a cool idea, of incident management teams contracting with quality contract companies that out there, say like I don't want to say any names, but anyway, so you get a contract company out that can come in and fill those roles. I think it's a really good augmentation, and I think you can see this also with the volunteer organizations such as Team Rubicon that has capabilities of doing it. The reason why I pick on Team Rubicon a little bit, different than the Red Cross and their mission, is that they are truly gearing up and training their people to be response on the ground, not support. Does that make sense? So I think you're seeing, and they're trained, and they're going through the training. They're going through all the FEMA training. They're going through heavy equipment operators training. They're getting certified in these things. They're going through firefighter training for wildland fires. They have all these checkboxes that they're going through, and you could get a crew from Team Rubicon to do things. And I think that if you're seeing another, like even the Cajun Navy, which I don't know much about them, so I don't want to talk too deeply about them, but those guys, I mean, they look like they know what they're doing on Swiftwater. I'm not a Swiftwater guy, so I'm just going what's on TV, but they seem to know, kind of have some sort of experience, whether it's right or wrong, or how it looks and what the dangers are. That's a different debate, but they're showing up, right? And I don't know if they're trained or not, but like I said, I don't want to talk about them necessarily, but I can tell you that Team Rubicon, they had a Swiftwater team that's all gone through Swiftwater training. There's a difference between that organization. So I think we're going to see, and I think once those relationships are built and people are able to trust them, trust organizations like that, and then we do know what their training is. We have some sort of, I don't want to say control, that's not a word I'm not looking for, but some sort of assurance that they are trained. I think you're going to see more trust in organizations like that. That's my opinion.
And Kim, one of your friends was big in the Cajun Navy, right? Wasn't that the connection that we used to get her on the show?
Yes, she actually helped as a dispatcher for the Cajun Navy, which was incredible because she had absolutely no training. She works for, of all things, she works for the Catholic Church in DC in a sort of program support role. So she just had a real heart for what was going on, and and that actually leads to a question I'd love to ask you. You mentioned so the spontaneous volunteerism being something that also is prominent after disasters. And there might be people like her who don't have specific training. Can you talk a little bit about some of the successful examples you see of people getting plugged into other kinds of organizations that can still help and play a role, especially like you talked about in these voids, perhaps even the first 48 to 72 hours after an event, and they're just positioned in a really strategically important place, or they can have a role where they're tied to other kinds of organizations that can foster aid. Can you just tell us a little bit more about what that looks like?
Sure. So, well, we call them the SUVs, the spontaneous unaffiliated volunteer, and so they're going to come, right, and they're going to show up. And this is the whole reason why CERT was originally created in LA City. Was they went down to Mexico and they saw these people come out and doing things, and some people got hurt, and we wanted to avoid that. We saw it in Oklahoma City where the nurse came to help out and she didn't have proper PPE and she ended up getting killed by rock falling on her. So we're going to have the spontaneous unaffiliated volunteers. And there's two parts about this. One is they're coming. Two is that I think it's important for the community members to come and help out in that response and take ownership in that response. And I talk about the idea of first responder. And realistically, those of us that drive around in the cool vehicles with lights and sirens on it and stuff like this, and if we really take a deep reflection on that, I think we're a second responder, because 95% of all rescues are done by a layperson. If the technical rescue comes in, it's a whole different story. But realistically, we're going in there and we're helping out after the fact that people are already putting direct pressure on people. They're already, Boston bombing is another good example of that. Mm-hmm. So people are going to come and help. So Yeah, so we have organizations in Orange County that help out with this. So it's the 10C. We can plug them into things where they're not necessarily going to get themselves hurt or into in the technical side. And we also help a little bit on instantaneous background checks just to see if the people, we don't want to put the wrong person in the wrong spot. Sometimes we do a little trust. If somebody comes over to me and he looks like he knows what he's doing, he says I'm a plumber, I'm going to say, okay, well, we'll help out with these guys over here and we'll put you on a crew. And if you show that you're not really know what you're doing, we'll end up having to leave. But I mean, I think most people aren't going to lie about those type of skills. I'm not sure if I would trust them with electricity, but water is a whole different story. But so they're going to come and they're going to need to use them. And if you don't, we saw this with the Cajun Navy is a good example. We saw this where in North Carolina they said we don't want you, go away. And the Cajun Navy said, fine, but we're still going to do what we're going to do, and they still participated. So, we can't tell them, okay, we can tell them no, but that's not the right way to do it. It's how do you bring them into the system and so that you do have some semblance of control. And other thing too is having conversations with people that are involved in these organizations, having them understand that we're not trying to control what they do necessarily. We need to have some semblance of what's going on in the disaster zone, so we're not doubling the efforts. We're not putting people in harm's way. We're not having others get, and then God forbid they're out there doing something and they get hurt. How do we go and rescue them where we know where they're at? So there has to be coordination specifically what's going on, and I think we're doing a better job at that.
I'm curious if you have any pointers for if someone finds themselves in a situation where they kind of are in a position where they're a spontaneous volunteer, almost whether they want to be or not, or they're just close to a disaster zone. They just find themselves in this role where maybe they have a facility that could be used to house people, to stage resources. What kinds of things should people, just a couple quick things should they have in mind if they're ever in a situation where they have to make a decision about whether to assist? Because you've highlighted that there are some challenges you can face. Facilities that have been used as shelters often do incur damage. There are some different considerations that they could think about before they have to make a choice in that situation.
Well, number one, I go this way. If I'm going to give somebody a book, I'm going to assume I'm never going to see that book again. Right. And the reason why I say it this way is because if you're going to accept somebody into your home, assume that there's going to be damage. Don't assume you're going to get paid for it. And I think that's really important. And it's a decision, and it's an individual decision. The second thing is make sure that what you're doing, you're safe. Your safety comes first because you just don't want to become a victim as well. Some people get taken advantage of during these times, and it's unfortunate. But like I said, I think 99.9% of the people aren't trying to take advantage of you. But still, just kind of keep that in mind. That make sure that you're being safe when you have it. And if whatever you're going to give up, and this goes back to the whole book thing, know that it's like gambling, right? If you go to Vegas, don't think you're going to win, right? Go there with the idea you're going to have a good time. If you're going to give this up, if you're going to give something up, to assume that it's just going to be a total loss. And understand if you can afford that loss. If you can't afford that loss, then you probably shouldn't be giving it up. But most of us try to give until it hurts, and I understand why, and I think it's a noble thing to do.
Yeah, I would suspect everyone on this panel and a lot of people in our listening audience are really interested in this because I think a lot of us have this passion for weather because we want to help people, and there's almost nothing that draws you more than being in a crisis. I remember when we had the tornadoes in 2013 here in central Oklahoma, and I'm sure my friends in Alabama, they can think of 2011 and the mass crisis situation that was. And they did everyone just wanted to give everything that they had. There almost needed to be a throttling of that and, suggestions made of how to give smartly. And, that, if anything, posed its own kind of challenge. Can you tell us a little bit about that? If you've worked with any organizations that have done any of that, management of the giving?
Sure. So there's an organization who I really like. I like a lot. They're called Good 360. Good 360 is the name of the organization, and that's what they do. They actually they coordinate with large donors and small donors, but to be able to go in, they could actually reestablish furniture and everything in a house by who they work with. A great organization, and the reason why donations is also known as the second disaster. And people do. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They want to help, so they go to their closet. They go, okay, here's some stuff I don't wear anymore. Somebody could use it, and they donate it. And they don't understand that there's the hours of personnel hours that go behind sorting and cleaning and doing and thing. And a lot of times those donations end up being going to the dumpster, unfortunately. But going back to this, I think that if you work with, and I say you being individuals, work with established organizations, right? Salvation Army, Good 360, American Red Cross, Goodwill, those organizations like that are actually going out helping out. If you work with them directly and not try to go independently over to the firehouse and dump off the back of your pickup truck with full of a bunch of stuff, it's going to go further. And if it's something they can't use today, they can actually use it down the road later on, maybe someplace else, but not necessarily in the disaster. So you're still helping out the system, and you're still being able to give. So I really do think you should go, and also if you're going to give cash, or if you're going to give dollars, right? Make sure again it's with an organization that's established, whether it be your church, whether it be your favorite charity that you already pre-identified. You don't want to just go to some guy who knocks on the door and says, "Hey, I'm Todd DeVoe, and I'm collecting money for the Todd DeVoe Fund. Can you, put a dollar in the can?" Because a lot of people do that.
Yeah,
So make sure you're giving to established charities.
those are all great pointers. Thank you.
There's a class I'm developing right now, and I wish I could steal this title, but Dr. Drabeck has already used it. It's called The Human Side of Disaster. And that's the book that kind of prompted me to do this. We're actually creating a class for my UCI program that's all about that human side of disaster, because realistically, at the end of the day, right, we could have a large fire. It might be the ecology of the area might be a disaster for that little area, but they're built to be, forests are built to catch on fire and to rebuild that way. It's sort of a natural thing. If humans aren't involved, it's not really a disaster. It's just a large scale fire. If the earthquake happens in the middle of the desert, like the one we had on July 4th, some people were affected by that. So I don't want to take away from them at all. But if that 7 point, whatever it was, 2, 3, happened in downtown LA, we'd still be talking about that earthquake today, right? It wouldn't be just a few homes. And then of course the naval base, China Lake was affected, right? That was where the big money was. But yeah, so if it was someplace else, we wouldn't be talking. So you need to have a human element inside that phenomenon to be a disaster, because I've seen some pretty large storms out at sea. And there were pretty large storms out at sea, but no one got hurt, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So Todd, talk about the Great American Shakeout, which is coming up in just a while here. Talk about that event and how people can get involved in it.
Yeah, the Great American Shakeout. So thank you for that. So this is started out as a California Shakeout, and it's been such a great success. And actually, back to Dr. Jones, Dr. Lucy Jones created this shakeout scenario, and it was a big drill for us that we had. I forget how many years ago it is now. 10 years ago. And so we had the Great American. So now it's actually gone in, and it's in. And I know that Mark is going to kill me for this because I always butcher it, but it's in all states, all 50 states plus territories. And then I want to say it's like 6 or 8 countries are doing it now. And it's, I believe it's 10/17 at 10/17 is going to be it's a Thursday. Was it 17th Thursday? No, 10/18 at 10/18. And so basically everything on the greatshakeout.org website, you can take videos, you can take some of the training stuff they have on there, some of the scenarios that they have built out for you. It's a earthquake exercise in a box. It's 100% free. Participation is great. You go on, log in, you say that you and your organization, and you can use it. How many people are in your group? So if you have 1 or you have 1,000 or 5,000 or whatever it is, like at the colleges, it's 36,000 students are going to participate in the Great Shakeout. And they're just looking for that just to see. And it's a great way to get people to get involved in preparedness. And if you don't know it, no matter where you live, there's a possibility that you could have an earthquake. So not just in California, Alaska, not the Pacific Rim. There was one and everybody got freaked out by it. It was like a 5.4 or whatever in DC a few years ago. Remember that?
I was there for that. That was no fun. I really thought it was a nuclear attack. So I'm still recovering from that event, because when you see the walls in a hotel doing the Watusi,
Right.
Yeah, I remember that.
I gotta
wakes
tell
you
you,
up.
I gotta tell you a funny story about that. So, on April 4th, there was in 10 years ago, right? There was an earthquake in oh my gosh, Imperial County, right? It was it was Mexico actually, technically, but that's kind of where it was. It was a 7.5 earthquake, pretty large earthquake, and we felt it up here in Orange County. And my sister was visiting from New York, and she runs into the bedroom where I'm laying down, and she's like, "Oh, is that?" And I go, "Yeah, it's an earthquake." I said, so I was sleeping. And I put a pillow over my head because I have a big window next to me. I'm like, just stay away from the windows, where it's okay, right? So, and things are shaking, and she's like all kind of freaked out. I'm like, okay, I kind of wake up and start doing some research. Like, well, it was a pretty big earthquake. So it was the next year about that when that earthquake happened in DC, and she felt it up in Albany, New York. And so she felt like she was an old pro at their whole earthquake thing. She told her staff, "I've been through one of these before." Yeah.
Cute.
And talk about shake alerts and the increasing role that may play in long term in helping people get that last minute warning process.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited about the shake alerts. So I've gone through a few presentations on it, and I actually had Josh Basham on my show about talking about shake alerts, his company, and it's a private company that's doing it as well. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to get into all apartments, schools, condos, anything that has an elevator, just so you can slow that elevator down or stop it and bring it to the next floors to open the door so people don't get stuck in the elevators. That's like one of the big things that happens when there's an earthquake. People get stuck in the elevators. They spend hours trying to get them out. So there's that, and then there's the ability to slow the trains down, or possibly even stop trains, and then other mass transit. And what it really does, it's at this point, it's only giving, 15 to 20 seconds, depends on how far away it is, or depending on how far away you are from the epicenter, of time right now to where it goes, oh, but here comes this earthquake. And we saw this play out on the 4th of July earthquake, where they're on TV and you saw that thing going off, and it was giving the warning that here comes the earthquake. Now, the cool part about it was the sensitivity was set on there to where Dr. Jones would say, okay, here comes the earthquake. She goes, but we're not going to feel any shaking because the intensity on that's just too low to feel any shaking. So it's a really, it works. And I think it's something that we should really invest some capital into, whether it's private and or government or both, because it's going to, at the end of the day, I think it has a huge potential of saving lives, specifically people that are on trains, and again, people that in the elevators to get them off, because I wasn't joking about the hours that we spend going to elevators to pop those doors open when people get stuck on them and between floors and stuff with these shakes.
Well, I know we saw lots of people on the national news channels saying, well, it didn't work, or this or whatever, but it did work.
It did work. Yeah, it did work. We just had the sensitivity. It's that double-edged sword, right? Because if we lower it down to say, okay, we're going to start getting shakes at like a 3, right? And then people's phones go off. It's going to be earthquake. You take a look at it, and you don't feel anything, and you go, oh, this stupid thing. It's going to be false alarms. Well, no, because if you're walking, you could be walking around your house, even like at a 5. If you're taking a jog, you're not going to feel that. You know what I mean? If you're sitting still, you're going to feel it. So it's going to give like these these false alerts, but they're not false alerts. They're a P wave coming through. It's just like looking at your EKG coming through, and it's marking the thing off. But so they went and the National Geological Center, they said, okay, we're going to do 5, right? I think that's what they hit. 5 is going to be the number that looking at and then Lucy Jones said, "Oh, we need to have like a little bit more, so it's going to be intense, not just a 5, but like what's the intensity going to be?" And I think they're right by doing that, but everybody thought it didn't work, but it did work. It did its job, and yeah,
That's exciting. I mean, that's really cutting edge.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is for sure.
So the University of California spent a lot of money to retrofit their football stadium. Was that necessary? What they did, was it a good idea? You know, what do you think about that situation, Tom?
Well, it's private money that did it, so you know they can do whatever you want to do with private money. But yeah, no, it's a beautiful stadium. I don't know if you've ever been there or not. It's a classic stadium, and I'm glad they did it specifically for that. And then but yeah, SC has a lot of cash floating around.
So emergency managers increasingly spend time with politicians and things like that. How do you get buy-in from your legislators and other policymakers, Tom?
You know, I just did an episode on Ian Weekly talking about selling emergency management, and my friend of mine who is a salesman he's a master. He's great. He's a great salesman. He's been doing it. He's a former Marine, good friend of mine, known each other for a long time. And he went into sales. He sells tactical gear and stuff. So my garage is full of tactical gear because I get to test it, right? So, but we're talking about selling, and he always told me, he goes, you emergency managers have to get better at selling what you do, because a lot of people don't know what we do. Right. And so I'm like, I'm not a salesman. And he looks at me, he goes, Todd, he goes, you get people to come out and do DUI checkpoints and not get paid. Right. Oh. You get people to come out and do community fairs and with a smile on their face and they don't get paid. So you're selling something. Right. And he goes, you just have to figure out how to. So I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. And so and I'm like, wow. So I really thought about it. We had like a long conversation. It was actually like one of the longer shows I've done in a long time. I think it was like an hour plus on it. And we just talked about what it means to get in there. How do we get to, so going back to the original question regarding how do we engage with politicians? I think that if we don't engage with politicians and if we just say, okay, we're going to go ahead and be plan writers and we're going to do it in our own little niche and stay comfortable here, and we're not out in front, with the city council members and with the mayors and with the governors and so forth and so on, that they don't know what we do and we become very easy to cut. And so that being said, is like, I've seen emergency management get cut from the budget. And I was told by a president of a college that the reason why emergency management is easy to cut is they could do it without friction. There's no pain in cutting the emergency manager because they think they can turn around and go, okay, all right, hey, police officer Schmuckatelli, you are now going to write plans, or just go take that FEMA course. You too can be an emergency manager. We're not worried about this stuff. Hazard mitigation, well, we'll figure that when it comes around. Disaster recovery, we'll figure that when it comes around. It's not making that checkbox, right? And so there's a specific formula that they think they need to meet. And as long as they're checking those boxes, they say, okay, we have an emergency manager program. It doesn't really work that way. So how do we make it to the point to where emergency managers, or if there's a friction and there's a pain point? Because I think that if the city council went over one day and said, hey, by the way, we're going to cut the position of police chief. And then we're going to go ahead and let the director of public works fill that role because we're going to save money that way. He can do both jobs. The citizens would lose their mind. Everybody gone to a city council meeting before, they'd have picket sticks and stuff. No city council in their right mind would do that. So, and another thing, and I'm going to go on my soapbox for a minute. Professionalizing emergency management, I think, is very important. I think we need to make the step in that direction. And there's a well-known emergency manager in California. She retired last year, and I just happen to be, I don't know her that well. I don't know her personally, I just know her professionally. And I happen to be standing by somebody else getting a drink, and they go, "Oh, what are you going to do now that you're retired from emergency management?" And she looks at him and she goes, "I think I'm going to become a police chief." You know, and the reason why she said this, we have so many police chiefs and fire chiefs that they retire from that job and they go, okay, I'm going to be emergency manager now. And we think that they could do the job because they have, not saying that they couldn't, right? But it's not a skill, it's a different skill set, right? It's a complete different skill set. So we see a lot of that going on. I think that if we can sell, right? Go back to the word, and let's not be bashful about this anymore. If we could sell the idea that emergency management is important as a police chief or a fire chief, it should be on the same level. I should have the same access to the highest official, whether it be the city manager or the mayor, needs to be sitting there as well at the same level, because it's a different skill set than it is to be the fire chief and the police chief.
Yeah, preach on, Todd. So, Todd, we're about out of time. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, do you have any social media accounts? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Sure. So LinkedIn is I love LinkedIn. So just find me, Todd DeVoe, and then it's a space DE space VOE on LinkedIn. You can always find us at EM as in emergency management weekly.com. And over there you can follow the show. Go on to any of your typical podcast players. You can like us and follow or subscribe to us there. We have a YouTube channel too that we're putting some stuff on, and yeah, that's what we got going on.
Awesome. Well, Todd, thank you so much for your time. Glad you made it tonight. Know some good information. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. It was my pleasure.
Okay, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you again soon here. All right, so let's take a quick break here, and we are going to roll Tony Rice and the Astronomy Report. Will come back with our picks of the week and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your Astronomy Outlook.
NASA's pretty terrible at naming things. The missions and the robots that carry them out tend to get very long, complex names and are most often referred to in acronym form. While they occasionally stumble onto a chuckle-inducing backronym like interior exploration using seismic investigations, geodesy, and heat transport, or InSight, the Mars lander with the seismograph, burrowing heat probe, and weather station that touched down last year, or the Combined Operational Load-Bearing External Resistance Treadmill, or Colbert, a bit of a consolation prize to fans of Comedy Central's Colbert Report, who flooded a naming contest with the suggested name for the ISS module, where the treadmill is located. NASA leaves the serious business of naming high-profile missions to those with the imagination and inspiration to get the job done right, kids. In 2009, Clara Ma, a then sixth grader at Sunflower Elementary in Lenexa, Kansas, finished her worksheet in science class a little bit early, filled the remaining time reading an issue of Time magazine for kids. There she read an article about Sophie Collins, a then 9-year-old whose essay was selected in a contest to name the Mars exploration rovers, Spirit and Opportunity. The article detailed a new contest to name the next mission, the Mars Science Laboratory rover. She rushed home and dashed off a 250-word essay and submitted it that evening. Fast forward a few months, Clara, Mom, Dad, and younger sister Remy were treated to a trip to Pasadena, courtesy of the Walt Disney Company, where she toured the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. She met with scientists and engineers on the MSL team, but the highlight was when she donned a clean room suit and signed her name and Curiosity's new name right on the rover deck. Clara would later return to JPL during high school, earning an internship. And that little girl who named Curiosity is now a climate scientist. She graduated in May from Yale with a degree in geology, geophysics, and political science. She's conducted research in air quality and climate change at Columbia University and has contributed to the U.S. Department of Energy's exascale Earth system model. Now, NASA has recently launched a new contest looking for a name for Curiosity's twin. The rover is set to launch in July 2020, is currently known as the Mars 2020 rover, but a naming contest open to K through 12 students through November 1st will be changing that. The winning entry will receive a family trip to Cape Canaveral to see the launch. Visit mars.nasa.gov/Mars 2020 and click on Participate. That's your Astronomy Outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
Oh, Aubrey, do you have time for email by any chance?
I was just getting caught up on the email.
Well, let's play some music and just maybe you can dive into the good old email inbox because something might be there.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
All right. So, excuse me. All right. So, first one comes in from Joanne. I listen to WeatherBrains every week and heard the discussion on show 715 about weather apps for the visually impaired. I'm totally blind, use an iPhone with a built-in screen reader called VoiceOver. So the most, and I think we talked, was it last week when we talked about this with some of the weather apps? The most important factor in considering any app for the visually impaired is that they must be accessible using VoiceOver for Apple devices or TalkBack for Android devices. So that means all buttons must be clearly labeled with text. The apps I use for weather are Weather Radio, formerly WDT, and Dark Sky. So those are two great suggestions for anyone. Love Weather Radio because it's fully customizable, accessible, and uses polygons instead of countywide alerts. I also love the lightning alerts because if I haven't heard the thunder, I receive the lightning alert and I know not to get in the shower. Dark Sky is also accessible. Love the show. So thank you, Joanne. I appreciate that. This one comes in from David Sharp. Just wanted to pass along another podcast called Natural Disasters. And the second episode features a two-part story on the April 27th, 2011 super outbreak. It features James and his old partner, Jason Simpson, as well as Brian Peters. It recounts the events that day in the series of storms and tornadoes that occurred the night before. It's a chilling episode and quite unbelievable. And David commends James for his epic work that day. So I am downloading episodes of things to listen on my drive down to South Carolina. So I just downloaded those two, and they also have a two-part on Krakatoa, which is kind of interesting. I actually have the book, The Year Without a Summer. Have not read it yet, but I think that's really interesting. So thanks, Dave, for suggesting that. I've already got those downloaded. And this next one is from Andy from Pickwick Lake, Tennessee. I absolutely love the show and listen every week. Wondering if you could provide me with some information for an at-home weather station to buy. Doesn't have to be super fancy, but something that can give me wind speed, temperature, rainfall, etc. I recall a while back that one of the panelists did a whole segment reviewing them, and any help finding that episode would be awesome so I can go back and listen for the info. Any suggestions? I know AccuRite has been pretty amazing with us, so we'll give them a shout out. And if you go to the AccuRite website, they actually have a bunch of different weather stations for different price ranges. So that's one I always recommend because you can always get a great reliable weather station, and you can base it based off of what price you're willing to spend, because they do have kind of a range. They have some lower end things, they have some higher end things. So whatever you want to do there. Anyone remember that episode? It's not coming to mind for me with the.
I think that was a while back. I don't think it was very recent.
That was when Brian used to get people to send him stuff for free so he could review it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Exactly. Yeah. You're right. AccuRite is good. And on the low end, you kind of got Oregon Scientific. And on the higher end, you've got Davis Instruments. Mm-hmm. And somewhere in there, you'll find what you need at the right price. It just takes a little homework.
And just look for the reviews. You know, we all do it when we buy stuff online. Just look for the reviews. So that is the email segment, email@weatherbrains.com. Some great, diverse emails tonight. So wide range of topics, what you like, what you don't like about the show, some guest suggestions, cool weather topic, just some information. We love to hear all about it.
Awesome. So I'll do my pick of the week, and Bill, I'm going to let you finish this up here. My
bedtime reminder went off. I got to go to bed now. Come on,
Grandpa.
I got to do the 10 o'clock news, Pops. I mean, you can hang in there for 10 more minutes. All right. So mine, it's an article about the temperature drop in Denver, which happens fairly often this time of the year, but it's always interesting. You go from 78 one day to 28 the next day to 18 the following morning with some snow along the way. So that's my pick of the week. So Bill, you take it over, and we'll gather together again next Tuesday night.
Yeah. All right. Dr. John hasn't signed off on this yet. So.
That's
right. So you better find a venue for us there, Dr. John.
Yeah, I'm working on it, Bill.
Yeah, don't let your wife know that we're going to keep you out until 11:30 next Tuesday night. So that's a good place for us to start. Dr. John, what's your pick of the week?
Well, I got to comment on James's pick. If you look at that, go to that link. It lists the top 5 dramatic temperature drops in Denver. And number 2 is January of 1888. Do you know what that?
Wow.
You know what event that was?
No.
And that's the children's blizzard. I'm sorry, but
Jeez.
January 12th, 1888 was the children's blizzard. 200 to 500 people lost their lives from that event. So that is
buses are painted yellow.
So the drop was of equivalent magnitude, but I guess it just got much colder, or there's just a lot more snow associated.
It was at least some of the numbers I've seen, 18-degree drop in 3.5 minutes and 50-degree drop in 4.5 hours. So it caught everybody completely unprepared, and they froze to death.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That is
unbelievable.
The difference exposure will make.
You're not kidding. So my pick of the week, Bill, I guess that's what we're asking about.
I guess so.
All right. This is a great resource. It's the NSSL's Severe Weather 101, and they discuss all kinds of severe weather, a lot of information there pertaining to what words we use, the descriptions we use to talk about different types of severe weather. So it's a great link to find out anything you want to learn about severe weather.
Outstanding. Well, you have your people get with my people, Dr. John, and we'll work something out for next Tuesday night.
We're going to have to at least do dinner then.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to have to upgrade our meeting. We'll go to a bigger plan, but glad to see you tonight, Dr. John. So
thank you,
Aubrey, while you're here, let's get a pick of the week. And I know you got a great one.
Yeah, so mine is from Mr. DC Lightning himself, Kevin Ambrose, with the Capital Weather Gang. It is an article he wrote. He took a great photo of a positive lightning strike from August in DC and had a few questions about it and spoke with some scientists, and now has it in kind of a 3D map and why it's so interesting. So that's pretty cool. So really good article from Kevin.
Yeah, you should ask him on the show. We should get him to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. He was actually at our Mid-Atlantic ChaserCon last year presenting about DC lightning and about how, kind of his routine for chasing lightning and stuff. And of course, how he stays safe and the things that he does. So it was really interesting to hear from him and see some amazing photos.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Aubrey. That's cool. Dr. Kim, tell us what's your pick of the week.
My pick of the week is an article that's sort of a recap of a congressional hearing. It was a House hearing that was held about a week and a half ago, featuring friend of the show, Dr. Marshall Shepard, but also Dr. Berrien Moore, who's the dean of our program here at the University of Oklahoma, and Dr. Ann Bostrom, who is a communication scholar at the University of Washington. And they were talking about advancements that are still needed to help connect with people. So connecting weather information with the motivation to act on it. And the article I linked, it was both really well done in its content, but the article title drives me crazy. And I wanted to post it so I could talk about it. The article title made it seem like, the problem is really that people just aren't listening to us. But if you read the content, what Dr. Bostrom says is people listen to us, and that's not the reason that they don't respond. So if you want to get into a little bit of the discussion, go ahead and read that article. I think it gives a wonderful summary of some of the things that people had to say. They were motivated to do this hearing in part by a finding from the CDC that I think it was in Sandy, a large fraction of the deaths were of people who drowned in areas that were mandatory evacuation zones. Right. So they were really trying to get at why don't people evacuate from some of these events? And they overviewed a lot of reasons, and none of the major reasons that were provided, especially by the experts in the area, were people just ignoring the information. It came down to all kinds of issues like accessibility, both of a better shelter and of transportation, finances, what neighbors were doing, issues like their pets. I mean, other kinds of things were really important.
So who is that author that, her stand is that you should, act in the first 5 seconds, something like that. Your life would be different if, like when you wake up in the morning, if you jumped out of bed at 5 seconds, if we all took that approach and, in this world, we probably would have a lot better situation when it comes to those things, because you just need to react and do it. But like Dr. John commented, too much information, confirmation problems, lead to procrastination. So that's the monster sitting on our shoulders, unfortunately, all the time. So great pick, Kim. So, well, my pick of the week is all the great guests that are coming up in future weeks. Next, if we get Dr. Jeff Halverson on the show next week, that'll be fantastic. We'll have to move him for like the third time, but if we can move him to Tuesday night, that'll be great. Kevin Claysel will be joining us on the 21st. I'm really excited about the 28th show. I hope I get to be here. Nicola Twillian, a writer who wrote a great story in some magazine, I think the New Yorker, is going to be on with a California forest ranger, Jeff Brown, who runs a forest, service location there in California. And, he had some amazing things to say in that article about wildfires and what we need to be doing to fix them and how some of our policies conflict and prevent good things from happening. Craig Setzer, great broadcast meteorologist from Miami, is going to join us on November 4th. Alan Seals, I'm pleased to announce, is going to join us on November 11th. He just, we got him inked today. His contract is in the barn now. And we're going to have Mike Linden from My Radar on the 18th. And just lots of good things coming up on WeatherBrains. But that's all the great shows. Y'all got any suggestions for me? Anybody I need to chase down as we head toward the Thanksgiving and Christmas season?
Wow. Wow.
Well, if you think of anybody, let me know. We'll run them down. So any further business we need to bring before the grand mahogany table of WeatherBrains here tonight?
I've just got to say, I love these pick of the weeks because there is so much great information that comes to light when we do this.
Yeah, we need to go back and crowdsource all of our great picks of the weeks and put them into one spot.
I use
an
them.
amazing
I
compendium.
frankly use them a lot.
Right?
Yeah,
there's so much stuff.
I use a program called Nudge Mail, that you send yourself an email and you say, send it back to me on, Thursday or every Friday or whatever. And it's loaded up with so many WeatherBrains picks, it's like overloaded the system, because it's like, hey, remember to go look at this, because there's some cool tools that we've learned about over time. So,
Bill, that was exactly the point in the article that Kim was talking about. Folks are overloaded with information and they don't know which direction to go.
Yeah, well, that's like my to-do list for tomorrow. So
Sounds good.
Better pay attention to my bedtime reminder here and go get some sleep. So, well, thank y'all for being here tonight. WeatherBrains is the weekly netcast. It's all about weather. I think, I'm approaching a third of my life has been spent doing the show. It's really kind of scary.
That's amazing.
I can remember the night James called us on the phone. I was driving through Glen Burnie, Maryland. He's like, we need to do a weather podcast. And I was like, really? Well, that'll last about 6 weeks. And 16 years later, because you can never underestimate Span. Whatever he sets his mind to, we do it. But after all these years, we do it usually on Monday nights. Next week, we'll be on Tuesday night, as soon as I said that, hopefully, if Dr. John can work it out in his
I have to
calendar.
talk to my boss.
Yeah, well, maybe we can talk them into doing it earlier, Dr. John, since, we got them to move it to Tuesday. Maybe they can move it to 7 or something like that.
That would be a really good idea.
So we'll see how that goes. But until next Tuesday night, when we'll talk to the great Jeff Halverson and all the future guests that we have coming down the pike, I'm Bill Murray for the whole WeatherBrains gang. Hope you have a great week. And as I always tell you, and I told the kids today at Pizzitz Middle School, keep an eye to the sky because you'll always have something fun to look at. Well, that was a great guest. I'm glad we got him on at the last second there. That worked out.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
Yeah,
what an insightful guest.
Yeah, thanks to our super listeners who always send us those great guest suggestions. We can use them. So, all right. Well, y'all have a good week. I'll see you next week, Dr. John.
All right, Bill. We'll be talking.
All right, bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Okay, so what we're going to do here is turn the video back on. So for those watching on the WeatherBrains side on YouTube, thank you guys for watching. And we're also simulcasting on Instagram on Song of the Night, my Instagram feed at spanwx.com. I love it when we simulcast. This is kind of cool. We're on the YouTube and the Gram at the same time. But had a good time tonight talking about emergency management, EMs, on WeatherBrains, and it'll be up on the podcast apps here shortly. But it's not going to be there until I turn the recorders off. So for those of you watching the WeatherBrains stream, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys next Monday night, maybe Tuesday night. We'll see. We've talked about doing it Tuesday. We'll pick it here in a few days. So thank you guys for watching. Y'all have a great weekend.